Welcome to Schenectady today and around the Capital Region. I'm Ann Pearl, your host for the day. We have a very special edition today. Our edition is Schenectady tomorrow because there are so many things that are going on in our community, and we have brought together some leaders in our community, the Capital Region, because we've covered a number of areas. And we're going to be talking about economic engines, how nonprofits and business work together. On the panel, starting from my, what is that, would be my...
Your left.
My left, but I don't know what it is for the viewers. So anyway, we have Colleen Miras. She is the Assistant Director of DSIC, which is Downtown Schenectady Improvement Corporation, and we'll be talking with her about things that are going on in Schenectady. Next to her is, we have Ray Legere. Ray Legere is the owner or co-owner or whatever of the Legere Group, and of course he's the owner of the newly established and renovated and exciting new Schenectady Armory. On my right here, we have Jamie LaHut. He is the Executive Director of the Metroplex Authority, and we'll be finding out what they're doing. They get quite a bit of funding through the county, so we'll find out what they do with that money and what they see is happening in Schenectady. And next to him, we have Jeffrey Buell. Jeffrey is somewhat a newcomer to our area. He purchased the Foster building, and he's doing quite a bit there. And we're going to find out about how he sees the community. He's kind of has a lot of strength in the Troy area, so we're going to be talking with him. And at the end of the table, we have Carmen Basila. He is the CEO of CDTA. Now, travel is very important when we look at our community. How do people get around? How do we get from one community to the other? How do we get from Schenectady to Detroit to Saratoga? And that will be the impact that we'll be talking with you about, if that's okay. I'd like to start out the topic that I'd like to talk about, and I've invited my guests to not interrupt rudely, but to interrupt and to add what they can to a previous person.
We can do that.
Yeah, I think Ray can do that, I'm sure. So let's start out by just talking about how you see the economy in the Schenectady area as well as the Capital Region. And since Colleen is part of the Downtown Schenectady Improvement Corporation, I'll start out with her just asking her how she sees it based on the fact that they do a lot of beautification, but they seem to have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on. So Colleen, I'll let you start, and then we'll go from there.
Well, that's a sort of a larger question. I can say from what we do at the Downtown Schenectady Improvement Corporation, sort of we take the piece after people like Ray and Jeff and Metroplex and Carmen Away have already established either transportation, properties, rehabs, things like that, and we sort of keep the maintenance and the beautification efforts going. So it's one thing to start the economic development and have a Metroplex Development Authority who can spearhead those efforts, and developers like Jeff and Ray who are willing to come in and rehab, in some ways, 100-plus-year-old properties back onto the tax rolls because they've sat vacant and unused for a very long period of time, and have an agency like ours who sort of keeps our eye on, the things that make the quality of life from an economic standpoint, like graffiti, like bike sharing, like those things, and we advocate for those things within the community. And entertainment, we have Jammin' on Jay concert series going on right now. We have the upcoming Wing Walk. We do fundraising, and as a not-for-profit, we're able to do things and access funds for different programs and processes that, say, another agency couldn't do. And so we advocate for the businesses because we represent the commercial properties within our district in a way that hopefully enhances downtown. And obviously we have lots of partnerships. We couldn't do this without the partnerships, which is why it's great that everybody's sitting here. And CDTA is certainly a fantastic partner within that because we now have the Electric City Trolley that runs Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays that helps move people around the district because parking, of course, is a major concern of ours to get people from one parking lot to the other, and this is a great way to do that. So it's sort of like, I think that's the answer to your question, at least from offers of...
Not to mention all those flowers you see downtown, DSIC. The no cigarette butts, the clean gutters, DSIC. The banners, DSIC.
So so this is how a nonprofit can support the economy by making things better, in a sense.
Yeah, because not everybody does things. Like even when you have city services like garbage pickup and stuff like that, there isn't the daily maintenance that's there. And in a city that's coming back, maybe you have absentee landlords. Maybe you have people who aren't essentially out there every morning like the old mom and pops who lived upstairs, came out in the morning, swept the front of their storefront, and then went to work and really gave back. So it's sort of like, and now you're on your 1,000th show, this is 1,001. I mean, it was really interesting in the development over those years. We've sort of seen a return to downtowns. We have the flight from the urban to the suburban, and now everybody's sort of realizing that downtowns are these unique, intrinsically unique places where people can come and gather and have an experience. Schenectady sort of established itself from an entertainment standpoint with Proctor's, which we're sitting in today, the GE Theater, and other partners, whether it's Mohawk Harbor, which will be with its fantastic casino, and other entities that are developing the riverfront development.
With the Gillespie group.
Yeah, with Gillespie and Dave Buco and what he's doing there. And again, these are all partnerships. And like I said, with the Electric City Trolley, it's transporting those people, because it's one thing to be able to park, but people want to park once and not have to move. Because if you get somebody back in a car, and this is what we've always thought about too, if you put that person back in their car, if they shopped once and they go back in the car, they're going home. But if we can get them to stay and think about all the things, so that's like, okay, I work here, now we have a happy hour with a Jammin' on J, or maybe we have a festival on J Street, or we just came through.
What you do is shoring it up, which
Yeah.
I'd like to then maybe move over to Jamie LaHutt, who is trying to bring business, I assume, into the area, to Schenectady County, is that correct?
We bring businesses in, but we also are responsible for sort of bricks and mortar redevelopment that takes place. That's what Metroplex does, is providing assistance for developers like Jeff Buell, like Ray Legere, to enable them to take buildings, as Colleen mentioned, that may be vacant, dilapidated, blighted, and then bring them back to life again. And Metroplex has had a lot of success in that. Since we were formed in 1998, we've invested over $175 million in projects throughout Schenectady County. That's leveraged by another $900 million in private interest. These guys put their own money in to these projects. So
Now, does Metroplex loan money? Suppose Ray Legere comes in and he says, I have a great idea. Does he go to you and ask? I'd like to know the flow of how
Could
this
you use a
works.
different example, please? Yeah.
Yes, Ray gets in line with everybody else and comes in and will look for some money when he's working on one of his projects.
And you entertain anyone that has a project?
We talk to a lot of people. We like to work with owners, the people that own the buildings. They're the ones that are making the
They
investment.
put the equity in.
They're the
sweat
ones.
equity
They're
in.
the ones that are paying the taxes. So we like to work with the owners. They're responsible for getting their own tenants to come into the building, and we think that formula has worked really, really well with these guys, with the Gillespie Group. They're a big property owner in downtown Schenectady, as well as in the outlying parks in Rotterdam and Glenville. So those are the people we want to work with.
If it
And
was,
then we discuss what the investment's going to be. They're putting in their own money. They're bringing in bank money. Maybe they need supplemental money from other sources like the state of New York. That's what we help them with.
Well, and on a smaller scale, we used to do the facade improvement program, which funding came from Metroplex, which helped the smaller properties get those, and in some instances, larger properties do rehab. And we did 101 projects with Metroplex together.
So
running
you
that.
guys work together. Now, that brings in two people here. We have Jeff Buell, who came from Troy with the Sequence
Yes.
Incorporated. And what you're doing is you spotted that Schenectady is a pretty vibrant area, city and town and county. So you are planning you've redone the Foster building, putting luxury apartments in and stores. Tell us about that experience that you've had coming to Schenectady, working with Metroplex, or working with whoever you work
Sure.
for. Maybe you didn't even work with them.
oh, we definitely did. We actually bought the Foster building from Metroplex. So they had acquired it a number of years ago, and then this was a bit of a gamble for us. We are at our core urban redevelopers. I don't really care much for the suburbs, and we like to focus on walkability and historic rehab. So Metroplex had this really extravagant building on State Street that had been left behind And, we took a chance that people would want to live on State Street right in the heart of downtown.
They do.
Oh, they most definitely do. And, we have no parking. I don't believe in parking. I think that if you,
Wait a minute, that brings in CDC.
yeah, I mean, if you don't have a
we
parking
like
problem,
Jeff.
yeah, if you don't have a parking problem, you have a way bigger problem,
Right.
because then no one is there. So from our standpoint, Schenectady did it a little differently than Troy did. I think both cities are experiencing a really awesome renaissance right now, and Troy's was more organic and a bunch of random people getting together and doing it, and in my opinion, Schenectady was more Metroplex, is running through walls and telling
Fortunate to
people.
have, yeah.
I would have not invested in Schenectady were it not for Metroplex.
Well, that's saying quite a bit.
Yeah. We are going to have invested, by the end of this year, we'll have invested $7 million on that block of State Street. And Metroplex chipped in with $500,000 of that. The other 6.5 is ours. And it's basically everything we have to say, here, we're going to go do it. But the money is one thing. The support is another thing. And I think that's really the strength of Schenectady. I had a meeting this morning and discussed the absence of a political nature in Schenectady. And politics are everywhere. But here, everyone's on the same page. They want to see you successful. And I do believe that they believe in the greater good of what's happening in Schenectady. And so it makes it a pleasure to work here. And it's something that we're going to continue to do because of that.
And Carm, he's talking about travel, parking and stuff. That seems like it works very well for CBTA.
It does, and just listening to everyone and thinking to myself, what makes Schenectady different, and why is this community so vibrant? What sets it apart? And I think it's the partnerships that everyone's talking about. You don't have to work hard to develop partnerships in Schenectady. I can't say that that's the same throughout the capital region. One of the things that makes us unique here is we're a 4-county operation, so we do business in Albany, Schenectady, Rensselaer, and Saratoga County. So I get to sit on a lot of these types of panels and participate in a lot of meetings, and it's not as easy in every community as it is here. People are on the same page. They understand what economic prosperity is. They know how we're going to get there, and they bring in all the parts. Oftentimes, transportation is sort of pushed to the side, and we'll
But
figure
it's
that
so
out.
important.
We'll
So
figure it out later.
Yeah.
And God forbid we have a parking problem, or God forbid we have a little bit of congestion. Congestion is a first indicator of prosperity. If you don't have congestion, there's no one in your community. If there's no one in your community, all these people who are in business, to make money, are not going to succeed. So the first thing you want to look for is congestion. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. We can
We
manage
didn't have a
congestion.
problem in the 70s. We could park anywhere.
Exactly. And the difference between
was the problem.
1970
You're right.
and today is dramatic. The difference between 1990 and today is dramatic. I think people in Schenectady really need to, number one, take stock in their own success. What has happened in this community is phenomenal. And you bring people here who have not been to Schenectady in a while, they're amazed. And it's because all the parts are there. And transportation is a key part of the economic development engine in Schenectady. And hats off to everybody who's contributed to that.
It's
It doesn't
good
happen
to
by
hear.
accident.
Good to hear that from someone who works with 4 counties, so that's important. Ray Legier has done a lot of, one of your primary businesses was restoration, which I love, the idea of restoring things. But one of your biggest accomplishments, as I see it, is the armory. What brought you to even consider purchasing an armory, for Pete's sakes? It's not just a house or a business, an armory?
Is
He
my
is a
wife-
little, you're a little certifiable, but,
Well, is my wife going to hear this? No. Actually, cousin Jeff Legier and I have been cousins forever, and partners since 80-something. And one day we're walking to lunch, and he's rather dry, straightforward. He says, "You want to buy an armory?" I said, "Sure." That's the last we talked about it for about 8 months. And then he came back and said, "Okay, it's up next week or whatever, next month." So we came back and we bought the armory. We're not afraid of big buildings. We have a lot
And
of
that
square
is a
footage.
big building.
It's a very big
It's a big
building.
building.
It's a
Tell me
large.
the size of it. I mean, how many people?
It's
can
bigger
you
than Jeff
accommodate?
Buell's building.
Yeah, okay.
Which building? We'll change the topic.
It's a big building. It has one room is 30,000 square feet, which is larger, has a bigger floor space than the Times Union Center.
Really?
But they have 16,000 seats after it. I've got one big room.
Yeah.
But it's a big room. But
And you've had sporting events there as well.
Well, what we bought it for because we weren't quite sure, and then we took about a year and a half, 2 years to figure out what it's going to be. And then we have a goal, and that is to make it a multi-purpose event center. Once we get one more set of exits in, we can hold 4,500 people.
That's going to be the largest one in the county, perhaps.
In the county for certain. Proctor's is 26, the Palace is 20-something, same thing. But we have no parking. Thanks for the Metroplex, they're developing parking down in the area.
See, I mean, how great it is that you work together.
Well, we are lifting together. I mean, Jeff could be perceived as a competitor, but not. We're friends. We're all doing the same thing. And Karen, you're right. What's the magic juice or elixir we're drinking here that makes it all happen? I don't know what it is. We're all lifting together. We're not competitors. We help each other. And, I mean, with DSIC, Metroplex, I mean, the chamber is still here. I mean, it's a lot of great things happening. It's fun to be here.
Yeah.
And I think it's happening in spite of my efforts, but just the same, it's really a good thing to be here.
Well, and I think what I see happening here that I think is a little overlooked is the housing, the residential component that's quietly being added to the mix in downtown. I mean, everybody talks about housing in Troy. It's pretty apparent. A lot of people living in downtown Troy right now. Saratoga is its own success story, but you don't hear about it as much in Schenectady, but it's happening. It's happening very, very fast. You guys might know the number of residential units that have been added in the last 2 or 3 years, but that's the difference now. Now there are people here 24/7, and they don't necessarily need a car or want a car to move around. So the electric city trolley becomes a new and innovative way to sort of look at things. But I think it's going up because of residential.
Schenectady has a new business. It's called entertainment.
Right.
We never had it before. We had GE, we had American Locomotive. Now we still have GE and some other businesses. Now we have the casino, and now we have entertainment. People come here to have fun.
Well, and in your next panel, you'll have people from.
We're going to be talking about arts, entertainment,
Yeah.
and tourism, which of course is an important aspect of it. So you see that this show kind of is called Schenectady Tomorrow. We've talked about what's going on now. I'm going to start with CD or Kerm and ask how you see things and how do you envision things in tomorrow? Is it? I mean, what do you think?
Well, we think bigger, better, bolder. We were recently named the best mid-sized transit system in North America.
That is cool. Congratulations.
So that doesn't happen by accident. That happens because, as a company, we're willing to break rules. We're
Well,
not.
you have an app now too that you can.
We have more apps than.
Yep.
Yeah, but a good prosperous company integrates technology into what you're doing. People really aren't interested in paper schedules and waiting at a bus stop. People want to know when my bus is coming. But we're doing buses, we're doing trolleys, we're doing bikes. We just introduced the regional bike share program that will double in size next spring. We have legislative ability now to oversee the cab industry. Everyone said that when ride sharing came, cabs would die. I don't believe that. I think cabs can prosper with oversight, thoughtfulness, administrative pushes in the right direction. We're going to introduce a regional fare structure with meters in every cab. It's going to be the same charge to get into a cab in Schenectady as it is in Albany, Guilderland, and points in between. So what I see is a more thoughtful, integrated transportation network that works here, works in Saratoga, works in Brunswick. We're one capital region. We don't need to compete with each other. We don't need to outdo each other. We need to extend the Schenectady working model to the whole region. So a thoughtful, integrated transportation network, not that far away.
And what Jeff was saying about having a community where people probably don't have cars, they don't need a car. That's where you're going to come in very strongly.
It's a new thought process. When I was 16, yes, the day I turned 16, I'm racing to Department of Motor Vehicles. That is not the same anymore. And even people with licenses choose not to drive or choose to use their cars infrequently. The success of ride-sharing is not because of the success of the ride-sharing companies. It's the desire and wants and the needs of communities to have a menu of mobility options. So we need to play on that. We need to get better. We need to be more sophisticated, and we need to respond to what the community wants. And really, people moving back into downtowns is the first indication of what communities want. Sidewalks and
support that.
conveniences and a supportive environment, I think is good for Schenectady. It's good for the capital region.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, I
Can
get,
see you tomorrow.
yeah, I get asked a lot about the residential thing that Carm's talking about. Have we reached the mass? Are you building too much? Are you worried about, an oversubscription of apartments? And I think that, so what I'm going to say, I think that most people that are older than me would disagree with, but I don't think that Schenectady has even scratched the surface of a comeback. I wouldn't even say it's started yet. And I think that's not to diminish anything that's happened already.
Jamie.
Right, I know. It's just like Jamie's sitting here saying, we've invested $175 million, and I'm saying you haven't done anything yet. And the reason I say that is because the trend of moving back to urban and away from suburban is not a 10-year trend. It's not a generational trend. It's a 50, 60-year trend. If you want to read a book that'll blow your mind, it's called Walkability by Jeff Speck. It nails right what Carm just said. 16% of 18-year-olds don't have a license anymore. 30 years ago, that number was 2%. It's a trend of the suburbs were an experiment, right? And it was an experiment in a time in human nature where everyone decided to leave a city. But if you look back, 3,000 years, we've always congregated in tight urban places. It's what we do. And so this isn't going to change. It's not going to suddenly go, everyone's going to go fly back to Clifton Park, which is, I always beat up on Clifton Park, but, that's not going to happen. So from my perspective, Schenectady tomorrow is a huge blank slate, and we are focusing almost 100% of our attention on Schenectady. And it's because of the topic here, which is how do you work together. And we know that I can go walk into Jamie's office and say, you ready for this crazy idea? And the benefit of having been right once or twice is that people stop thinking you're crazy and they just think you're eccentric. And
how does that feel?
How's that work?
Right, how's that feel?
And then they're like, sure, okay, yeah, we can get behind that. And so I tell everyone that'll listen that from my perspective, the team nature of Schenectady means that anything can happen. And so while there's been a couple hundred apartments built in the last couple of years, why not in 10 years shouldn't there be 5,000 apartments built in Schenectady? And why shouldn't everyone live here? And then I'll stop talking 1 second because what Carm said is also right. We need to get rid of the parochial nature of the capital district. There's not a competition between Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Rensselaer, Cohoes, Waterville. We need to work together. We're 1.3 million people combined. And if we start marketing ourselves as a metropolitan area and not a bunch of small people that are, politically competing against each other, it'll be like a rocket ship and it'll take off and no one will have known what happened.
Okay, so the rocket ship. It seems like you're part
Rocket
of that.
Man.
You're Rocket Man. Yeah, good.
Well, I think Metroplex's strategy from the beginning was really to start at the core of the downtown, really the heart of Schenectady County. And if you take a look at any of the literature of successful communities, east of the Mississippi, it starts with arts, entertainment, culture, is really the driving point, which we started with Proctor's and kind of worked our way from there. We've added 1.5 million square feet of new commercial Class A office space. Retail is sort of a different story because of the internet and how things have really
with
changed.
bricks and mortar,
Right, and people's habits for buying. But these guys have already touched on it, that you really take a look at housing and the residential side. I've always had this hypothesis that Troy and Albany have always benefited a lot in housing, particularly in market rate apartment housing, because of all the universities that are in those cities. That the students sort of artificially drive up the pricing of housing. Schenectady has historically had very low cost housing. We've seen some of the impacts of that, not only in the downtown, but in the neighborhoods as well. And so, as was mentioned, there's been 300-400 apartments that have been added over the last 5 years. Just down the street at State and Erie, there's 105 apartments. In Mohawk Harbor, there's 206 apartments coming online. There are other projects that are going on, but these guys are absolutely correct, that I think you're just at the very beginning of what you're seeing is a big change in the residential structure in Schenectady and Schenectady County. And you're seeing a lot of activity in the neighborhoods that people really don't always recognize. Demolition of blighted housing. That's been going on with the Schenectady
And the
Land
city is
Bank now
working
for
on
the
that.
last 5 years.
Do you have
Working
a
with
land,
the,
land,
there's a land bank that
Bank.
covers the city of Schenectady, and working with the city, with our industrial development agencies. There's a little Metroplex money. We have some limitations working in the neighborhoods, but you're seeing some real changes and more focus. And I think that's what's going to happen in Schenectady. The neighborhoods are going to come back. The taxes are going down. The neighborhoods are going to come back. The schools need to improve, but I think that's what's going to happen tomorrow in Schenectady.
It'll happen, yeah, and it'll happen gradually perhaps, but it'll happen. Ray, how about you? Tomorrow?
As much as I hate to agree with Jeff, I have to. No, it's the housing. I mean, back in the heyday, Schenectady had how many, 60,000 people? Back when GE
Oh,
and...
yeah.
And now we're down to whatever.
It's 100,000.
It was
Now
100, now it's 60.
But we lost all these people,
What's the
40,000
number or
people.
two, right?
and now the houses that are just falling apart and getting rid of them and...
We have housing stock for 40,000 more people than we have.
Yeah, we have too many houses. So people always lament when a house gets torn down, but houses have life cycles. And back to the urban hub, that's where it's going. You're absolutely right. Thousands of years ago, we all clustered, and here we are. The burbs, they'll do fine. They'll do fine. We just hope that we can get the Armory and the whole Mill Lane Artisan District. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about that, but I mean, what J.T. Pollard's doing down there is just, it's mind-blowing. It's almost Buellable. It really is.
No, the Mill Lane project is the coolest project in the Capital District. I mean, if you need a cool factor, I joke all the time about what different cities are missing, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but Schenectady's missing some of that coolness.
Conservative.
And that Mill Lane idea that JT has, if that pops, then you have the cool, and you have the entertainment, and you have the restaurants, and you have the office space, and it's like, for somebody like me, who I like doing residential, I think it's fun, keep going, guys, keep working. You're
exactly.
building up my business for me.
I mean, the Golden Triangle is Erie Boulevard, State Street, and South Church, I think it is, between the Armory, the new development on State and Erie, and Mill Lane. It's going to be a hot little spot down there, it really is. And I'm happy to be near it. I'll ride on those coattails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think what's happening is just amazing, and I love the housing, and we have what the from the Albany Barn are putting up something
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
too.
They're going to have makerspace on Albany Street, and which is great. And then from my perspective, as far as Schenectady tomorrow, I would just say that the reality is that all of this, I've been working in downtown Schenectady now for 15 years, and it's taken us 15 years to get here. It's going to take us, to Jeff's point, another 15, 20, 30 years to get to the next level. It is residential development. It's also retail development. It's so many different things. But Schenectady's downtown is everybody's downtown. I mean, I think people forget, like, from a county perspective, downtown is like everybody's town. And then everybody lives either in proximity to that and then uses this as its entertainment hub. And I think that is just generally where we're going. It's why transportation, comes through here. I mean, you have rapid transit from Schenectady to Albany on a regular basis for workers. I also think that as we age in population, I mean, the answer to the housing thing is some seniors don't need to be in a fixed housing situation, but a house is too much after some point. And so those empty nesters, those seniors, they're active. They're not, the seniors of like my parents' generation necessarily. They want to live in cool, funky places. They want to get on mass transit, and they want to be close to their entertainment hubs and park once and be done with it and have a car for going to the doctor or doing whatever. And I think that's where downtown ultimately, and the county is sort of going as its development of, sort of to Jamie's point, the core and working out from there.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I want to thank all of my guests today on the panel. We're going to have another panel coming up next, which is going to talk about the arts, entertainment, and tourism and how that fuels the engines of the economy. I want to thank you, Colleen, for being here, and also Ray, thank you so much for being here. You're always a hoot anyway. And thank you so much, Jamie, for everything you do to keep our economy running. And welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're in our area. And Carmen, I'm so happy to hear such positive statements from you about how we shine
Thanks, Ann.
in Schenectady. Thank you all for being here. Stay tuned for our next panel. Well, here we are back again, and our second half of the panel is going to be addressing Schenectady tomorrow. We're talking about we talked about the economic engines. Now we're going to talk about fueling those engines, because the engines are there. We have the stores, we have the housing, but what do we do after that in order to get people to support those businesses in the housing and whatever it is? And we see that as the arts, entertainment, and tourism. On my panel, starting way over there, we have Maria Papa. She is the owner of Parecas, and she is a force in almost nationally with her breads and her reputation, and among other things that she does. And next to her, of course, we have Judy Patrick. She is the vice president and the editor of the Schenectady, or the Daily Gazette. We call it the Daily Gazette now. And old habits die hard, Judy, I'm sorry. So we see what they do. They sponsor many of the events that we go to, which in a way they have their newspaper, but they also sponsor events. And then on my right here, we have Mary Zawecki. Mary Zawecki is the executive director of the Schenectady Historical Society. And talk about events, and we've got things going on all the time that you draw people in on with at the Mabee Farm and many of the other places that you do it. And next to her, we have Madeline Thorne. Madeline Thorne is the executive director of Habitat for Humanity. But more than that, she is a very active person in our community, creating events, working on events, being part of the community at large. And I think she has the finger on the pulse of what's going on. And then next to her, we have Mac Sudduth. And Mac came here a few years ago and became the executive, or the president, I don't want to say executive, the president of my side, the Museum of Innovation and Science. And he's one of the persons that have changed the course of that museum and creating a real destination with the Challenger Learning Center and the Dudley Observatory, et cetera. But we'll let them each talk about themselves, or not themselves, about what they do, I would say. So maybe we'll start out with Mac here and tell us how you see what you're doing is to help creating a movement in our community.
Well, I should give some tribute to Philip Morris before I say anything, because he put together a group on the creative economy, and the creative economy that includes, food and arts, entertainment, tourism, makes a substantial economic impact on our community, and it's a big treasure here, and often people don't really even realize that it's here. In terms of my side, we've come a long way. We've increased attendance 500%. We do a lot of measurement to see what happens when people come to my side. We have, for instance, in November we'll have a science festival. It'll be 5 days, and the last science festival we had about 2,500 people. But through careful scientific evaluation and polling of those people, we found that put those days of the science festival put about $250,000 into the local economy. People who came and stayed and ate and bought gasoline and bought other things, and maybe some of them even stayed overnight. More recently, one of the fun things that happens here in Schenectady is what I call Festival Day. It was September the 9th. I know that because it was also my 50th wedding anniversary. But there's the Italian festival, and there's the Greek festival, and
Art.
there's the art stroll and the stockade. So we decided we would have a bubble festival the same day to see if we could get people who festival hopped. And actually, we had about 1,000 people come through to see the Bubble Festival, and that included, we did an after-hours event from 5 to about 7:30, which was called Bubbles and Brew. That was only for people over 21, and we had about 300 people come to that.
Well, there's a lot of bubbles in Brew, right?
Yeah, so we had a good time. So people are looking for unique opportunities for entertainment and education. We sort of think of my side as edutainment. What we're trying to do for the future, though, is we want to we're part of a group that's trying to redo Vale Park. And we want to connect a nature trail from my side of Vale Park and make Vale Park a vibrant place where people can come and get a food truck at lunch, or, go to have some festival space there. And then in this month or next month, we'll start building an actual physical observatory for the Dudley Observatory.
Oh, wow.
With a new modern computer-actuated telescope, and we'll start being open at night, at least one night a week, so people can come see the stars.
So we're talking, in a way, we're talking tourism, and so do you see that people are coming in from outside the area, or are these specifically people only from Schenectady? How do you see you're bringing people into the area?
We see both. We take the zip code of everybody who comes in and buys a ticket, so we get a good distribution. We get people from Massachusetts and from Vermont, and during the summer, we get lots of tourists,
Good.
because tourists come to the area anyway. But we serve local families as well, and that's certainly part of the economy. If we want to attract people here for industry, there has to be something for their families to do, and believe me, we have a wealth of things that going on.
Well, and then we have the casino, which of course draws people, but not everybody goes there for a specific, to pull the slot machines, because they may come with families. The guy plays the poker and the family comes with him. There's other things for them to do in the community, and that's how I see
Right.
that perhaps that would be
Plus,
helpful.
we have some of the best Italian food in
We sure do. We do.
North America.
Okay, then we'll go over to Madeline. And Madeline, I know I've worked on committees with you. We've worked together with the Kids Art Festival and
Sure.
many other things. And she's a very hard worker. But tell me, because I know you do Upper Union Street, tell us how you see perhaps the smaller venues, or maybe they aren't so small. Tell us about it.
Well, through-
And I know you do Habitat as well.
Well, yes, but speaking specifically to the arts and the entertainment and how that has affected our economy, I do work with the Upper Union Street Business Improvement District. So we see this energy that has started in downtown Schenectady is spreading out into the neighborhoods. The Upper Union Street Business Improvement District has 2 festivals. Local artisans come, show their wares. Well, every one of those artisans is turning economy. They're all turning dollars over. Some of them have additional staff, so they have their own employees. All of those good small businesses help our economy just get better, and we want to see more people going out into the neighborhoods. The Mount Pleasant neighborhood has had a lot of challenges, we know that. Well, now we see funding coming in through a new library. That's going to be magnificent for that neighborhood. Just a few years ago, or last year, 2 years ago, we opened up the Phyllis Bourne, 1,000 new library
That's
cards.
on
with
State
them-
Street.
On State Street, 1,000 new library cards in 1 year. That shows an interest in creativity. That shows an interest in education. And all of that is going to help improve straight across. And all the neighborhoods have their own little festivals, their own little niche that they get into. And I'm going to, if you don't mind, Dan, I'm going to take you back to a few years ago when Proctor's was just getting started. And we had friends that called us from out of town and said, we want to see a show at Proctor's. What else is there to do in Schenectady? And honestly, at that time, there wasn't anything else. We actually had to send them up to Rotterdam for a decent meal. But
Oh, not
now, you come into Schenectady, there are so many things to do, so many wonderful restaurants. And I'm always impressed by people like Maria, who had a family business that was going well, but then she took this brave next step and opened up a restaurant, and then the sauces, and it just keeps going out from that. So creative food can become a whole lot more than the restaurant that you see. These festivals can become so much more behind them, and that's going to keep us
And the
moving.
museums, because we have the Empire State Neurosciences Museum, we now have the aquarium, there's other things
Correct,
going on,
correct.
and of course, that, which brings me to my next guest,
Great.
Mary Zawecki, with the Schenectady Historical Society, and what you do to bring people into the area, and I don't think it's just Schenectadians that come to these events.
No, we do the same thing that you do at my site. We collect the zip codes of everyone, and we definitely find that it's people from the whole capital region and even beyond that. People, like both of you said, are really interested in entertainment and education, and when you can find the intersection of those, people are really engaged. We have a lot of success with public programs that take people outside of our museum and outside of our site and on the streets of Schenectady through different neighborhoods. We did a Little Italy walking tour, actually, with Maria last year. That was a huge success. It got people from throughout the capital region walking through Little Italy, tasting the things that were there, and learning about the history of the area.
Which brings another aspect of it that they mentioned, Maria, and I'll continue on here, but the fact that we have a lot of ethnicity in our community. We talk about the Greeks, we have the Italians, we have the Polish festivals, we have the Irish, we have the Scottish. I mean, there's so many things that add a dimension to our community, not just the flat, this going, there's like, you're doing this, I'm learning about that, now this and that. So, and I think you tend to also try and bring in, like the heritage and the old crafts and things that are beyond what, the usual band or something.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of layers to Schenectady, and it's fascinating for us to help people understand where this city came from and also to look to where it's going, which is why we're here today, to discuss that.
Exactly. Which brings me to my next guest, because they're the ones that put everything in the paper and say, hey, go see this, right?
Exactly.
And you do you help with the parade. I mean, you do so much. So, Judy, how do you see this?
I view the paper in print and online. Our mission is to make the community stronger, and I think one big way to do that is to tell the story of Schenectady, which has such a rich heritage of arts and education. I mean, you think about the Schenectady High School theater program, the Stockade, which has, dates back to the 1600s. There's a great foundation that we work with. So we like to remind people about, GE was built here. We're doing a series on GE's 125th anniversary, and it's reminding people about what a great community this was and still is. You drive by the Central Park Rose Garden. I had friends visiting from out of the country, and I brought them there. I said, this is one of the best rose gardens in the whole country. It's right here in Schenectady. So we like to tell those stories. We're really proud of Schenectady. A few years ago, I think one late night comedy guys was making fun of Schenectady.
Oh, I remember.
And we had a great time putting together a front page that says, these are 10 great reasons that we love Schenectady, and they're there. And so day in and day out, we tell those stories. I mean, this maker space up in Hamilton Hill that they're talking about, to bring artistic, new artistic energy to not just downtown, but to these surrounding communities. I'm one of these people who likes to walk around the town at night. And you take a 4 or 5 mile walk, you can hit the Central Park Rose Garden, downtown where people are drumming on J Street, go along the Mohawk River, you can see the people growing on the Mohawk. It's a great place, and so my job is to make sure that story gets told every day and to help the people in the community tell it. It's pretty fun.
You not only tell the story, though, but you are part of some of the things that are going on, because you do sponsor a number of events. One of them is usually the parade. I don't know if you do it every year, but anyway.
Yeah, we do it every year.
Yeah.
It's a great parade. It's
November.
So biggest nighttime parade in in the Northeast. Right.
Oh,
there
there's
might be
another
one
one?
in the Northwest that I don't know. We don't know
maybe
about.
we should check that one out, right? Right.
Yeah, we think we're part of the community. We believe that we can help make things happen, and that parade we're really proud of. I march in it, and it's such a great to march in it. It's really cool because the little kids all along the way, they're really excited because I get to march with the Santa sleigh.
Oh,
and
cool.
Oh man, it's one of those unbelievable moments, and so it's one of the things that brings the community together, and you really see the power of the people in that parade.
Well, I remember years ago, just to just go off topic, well, not off topic, but I was in the parade. It's when Proctor's did a thing with all the theaters or something, and we got all these costumes from the costumer, and we marched in the parade. It was an experience. And now, granted, I'm usually on the other side watching, but I have to concur with you. It was an experience to see those kids with their eyes lit up and so excited and seeing the costumes, and it was fun.
Santa. Only to be Santa, that adoration, is pretty
Well,
spectacular.
we all like a gift. Yeah. But anyway, speaking of a gift, we have Maria here, who is a gift to our community as well.
Thank you.
Maria, she's a pretty dynamic woman. She had a career in New York City, right?
I did.
Yeah,
I did in publishing.
And somehow she was very successful. And then something happened, and she thought, well, maybe I could go up and take a look at this little business that maybe. So you really stepped into it, but it's beyond that. We're talking about Jack Nicholson thinking your bread is good. Talking about that, you're talking about mailing your bread throughout the country or
We
whatever.
do, we do,
You're ju-
yes.
Tell us, because that's part of making a touristy statement. So tell us that.
Yeah, well, even though Pareca's Bakery has always been here for 104 years now, our restaurant, More Pareca's, is fairly new. November of '09 we opened. And historically, in a up-and-coming urban renewal environment, it is the restaurants that take a toehold first, especially in the downtown area. And then, as we've heard on the previous panel, housing and retail are soon to follow. And that has happened within the past, 10, 11, 12 years in Schenectady. I know around the time that I opened my restaurant, restaurants were opening up everywhere, popping up everywhere in the Schenectady downtown area and in Upper Union, just in the outlining areas as well. And it's very tough to open a restaurant. You lose money.
It's a tough business.
You lose money the first 2 years, hands down. And I've got to say, my business is still here, and every other restaurant that was popping up at the same time is still here in Schenectady. So we have a phenomenal track record of keeping these restaurants open, which is a very, very good sign for downtown Schenectady. You don't see businesses, coffee shop, pubs, bars, restaurants, opening up one day and, 6 months later they're closed down. We've seen, I think, in my humble opinion, Schenectady has a lot to look forward to. We've started out a lot like Providence, Rhode Island, a lot like the renewal of Burlington, Vermont, and we are following step by step in those footprints. I'm proud to be a tiny part of that, but it does start with the food. People have to eat. I, as a restaurant owner, every time I see a new restaurant opening up in my vicinity, I don't look at that as competition. I look at that as being good for everyone. Schenectady is I witnessed it becoming a destination. Now it is it's a culinary destination.
Well, and
Schenectady has good food.
When you say that, because you focus on Italian foods, of course. Why
Yes,
wouldn't we?
yes, I do.
That's what we love, right? But we also are looking at, if you go up and down the streets and talk about Union Street, we're also talking about, well, just close here, we have a Jamaican restaurant right here. We've got Southern cooking. We've got the Moroccan restaurant. We have the Persian restaurant. We have the French restaurant. It goes, and Chinese. We have the Asian fusion. We could go on, Mexican. We've got it all here. And I like what you say about competition, because I've always felt that, if you have 8 restaurants in an area, that's a destination.
It's wonderful. It's
because
wonderful.
I want to go to this restaurant. Well, they're crowded. They're packed.
And
I'm gonna go
so
to
you'll
here.
come to
I'm gonna go
mine,
the next one.
or vice versa.
Yeah. Or I don't mean
Right.
specifics, but that kind of thing. So I see what you're saying, and to speak to that as well, I could spin over to Upper Union Street, that has really had a resurgence in all their restaurants.
It's doing, there's more restaurants coming to the Upper Union Street. The Lyco company is redeveloping the City Squire site. We have brown bag sandwiches coming up. But more than that is that there is, again, a lot of artisans, a lot, that artistic flair that's really driving Upper Union Street. It's known for that boutique shop. It's known for the unique shop. So that, again, just helps the economy get stronger. More people have an interest in Schenectady, Upper Union Street, and those small enclaves of shops have become destinations. People do come from outside Schenectady.
And
They
that's-
come from, because they know when they go to that type of a shop, like J Street is, they're going to get a level of customer service that they don't get in a big box store, in a mall store. And they're also going to get something that they just don't find anywhere else. So those wonderfully those brilliant minds that are redeveloping those areas, it's really beginning to show.
And I see that as well. So which brings us to our kind of a wrap-up is Schenectady tomorrow. And I'll start with Mac. Mac, and I want to tell you how much I appreciated you being president of MySci, and you just recently announced that you were going to step down, but not evaporate. Is that right?
That's right. So I'll spend, my last day as president will be at the end of this year, and then I'll work on some of the big projects for my side.
Right. So how can you, as you step away, see things happening, say at MySci, if you want to address MySci or elsewhere, how do you see this growing? I mean, I'll let you address that.
Well, I can tell you, I have to start with my side because that's my job and it's my love. I think the next step for my side after they get the new observatory open and get the nature trail through to Vale Park, there will be a lot more stuff to do outside. But the next step for my side has to be another building on the same site. We have 4 acres. And because right now we don't have enough room to put up national and international traveling exhibits. We could be doing exhibits like Titanic or Body Worlds or King Tut, but we don't have the space. And anytime we want to do any sort of traveling exhibit, we have to sort of take everything down and put up the traveling exhibit.
You'd like an exhibit
so
hall.
We need an annex with an exhibit hall, and we need more classrooms. Our summer classes we oversubscribed this summer. We had to turn people away. So we need more classrooms.
So what you see is that this will be a destination. You're making MySci a destination.
We want to be the science center of the capital region, and we want people to come from throughout to do it. We're part of a network of about 350 science museums, and if you belong to MySci as a member, you can get into the Boston Museum or the Franklin Institute or the Seattle Science Center for free. So I think that's the other thing that I see in the future. The Schenectady is grown because of collaboration and partnership, and we're just going to have ever so much more of that. And I think the other thing that we have to do is reach out more into the community, and I think that's going to happen in the future too. Like the branch libraries, there are people who don't know about the Maybe Farm or about MySci or whatever, and we just have to go out to those people.
That's why we need the newspaper.
We have to go out to those people in the festivals and engage them where, close to where they live and get them excited about edutainment or learning and history and science and art.
And Madeline, you have anything to add to that?
Well, I'm going to go back to the Upper Union Street area because very close to Central Park, and Maria and I had the pleasure of working with the Music Haven series this summer. Well, because you have this entertainment,
which is a free series, by the way.
great, amazing series that's coming. Well, because that series has been so successful, and some other forces that have come together in Schenectady County at the state level, the local level, and certainly with our local government in the city, there's a whole new stage coming to Central Park. There's an outdoor amphitheater is really being built with tiered seating and improved sound, and all of that is going to go on. Huge economic growth, lots of job creation, a whole new energy is going to come to Central Park, and then as an adjunct to that, getting a brand new ball field. Well, I like that. So we're seeing in all different facets, and I also want to say, by the way, to my friend Mac, that when my grandchildren come from Clifton Park, the first thing they ask me is, can we go to the museum? Can we go to the museum? So that's a wonderful thing. Thank you for that.
And what you're saying, too, about the Music Haven being an event, that it's a free event and everything, but you're supporting it with Parecas, with food. So
right, and people come from all over to hear that international eclectic kind of music that's brought there. But then again, people are investing in it. People are recognizing. So talking about Schenectady tomorrow, there's growth there. There's settled. This is huge what's coming. So Schenectady is continuing to self-invest and reinvent itself.
And Mary, how do you see it moving forward?
I see it moving forward in the direction of attracting more and diverse tourists to this area. I think people have really come together in the past couple of years from all sectors in Schenectady, from nonprofits and museums to people who own restaurants or hotels, and just coming up with kind of that cohesive narrative of what is Schenectady and why should you come here, and getting that out there to actually get people to come. And I think we're going to start to see that increase a lot in the upcoming years, and I'm excited for that.
Okay, and Judy?
Hey, we can't forget that Schenectady is going to be on the forefront of digital age because the city is developing the smart cities approach.
Right.
And so we are going to be known as the city, where you can check your phone and get all sorts of information that you couldn't before. And I think that's going to give us an edge. Sure,
That's a good point.
Yeah, our neighborhoods are going to get stronger. We're going to have more fairs and festivals and restaurants, but we will have that new layer of digital that will distinguish us in the
It
region.
draws people because people want to know, they don't want to give up all the stuff that they.
And I don't even know what it's going to look like, but I know what's going to happen, and it's going to make us really special.
Maria, how would you like to go?
I see more restaurants. I know we have wonderful restaurants now. There is room for
And they're
more.
busy. They're all
And they're
busy.
busy, and there's room for more. We recently had the Little Italy Street Festival. We had easily 10,000, 12,000 people on the street. Our Little
That's a lot
Italy,
of
North J
cannolis, huh?
Street. And we
Oh, my God.
had room, we had room for more restaurant, major
You could have had
restaurant
more, yeah.
vendors out on the street. There's, talking to people, a whole lot of people came from Clifton Park. They don't have that kind of
Suburban doesn't have that.
rich cultural festival in Clifton Park. A lot came from Clifton Park. People I saw came from Albany, Slingerlands, Del Mar. It was wonderful to see all those people converge on, Little North J Street in Schenectady. So there's room for more.
Well, it's
Yeah.
certainly, in speaking with the panel, it looks like we have a lot of energy and optimism on our panels, both of our panels. And I would like to thank all of my panel members on this second panel, which was talking about fueling the economy, fueling those engines. And we're talking about arts, entertainment, and tourism, and I think we've touched on all of those. I want to thank Maria Papa, owner of Parecas, and thank you also for being a sponsor at our 1000th show. Judy Patrick, who is the editor of the Daily Gazette, and I got that right this time, right?
Thank you very much.
And then we were talking with Mary Zawecki, who was recently appointed the executive director of the Schenectady Historical Society. Please check their website. They have a lot of events going on. And Madeline Thorne, who is involved in you're everywhere, my dear.
It's my
You
pleasure.
are-
I have more fun than anybody
I
else.
know you do. Nobody should be having this much fun. All right. And Max Sudduth, I hope that we will see you much more in other capacities in our community. I know you're originally from the South. Is that it?
Some people say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're glad you're here. That's all I can say. But I only have a moment here to go on and tell you who to come to our show next week and watch. We're going to be having the author, Sylvie Breiber, talking about the inscription in the window. She's written a book about an inscription she found in one of her old homes, her old homes in the Stockade area. We're going to be talking with the Epilepsy Foundation about an overview about what they do. We'll be talking about the Lyme Action Network. We're going to do a little bit on physical conditions, I guess. And then we're going to be talking with Northeast Parent and Child about Give Hope a Home. Proctor's Historical is going to be talking about the costumer. And then the Schenectady Civic Players is going to be doing a play calling the 5th of July. And that's going to be a great show. And we invite you all to attend many of these events that I just spoke about. That's another destination, coming to the theater. We haven't even touched the theater yet.
Correct.
But the theater scene in Schenectady is awesome. And I'm not just talking Proctor's, I'm talking about MOPCO, the Civic Players, the Schenectady Light Opera. There's so many things going on, and they all have to eat, right?
I'll have to eat. Yes.
Everybody has to eat. Good. So we're going to be talking about food, too. Thank you all for watching Schenectady Tomorrow. It's the only edition that we're doing called Schenectady Tomorrow, because we're going back to Schenectady today, of course. And I'm Ann Prill, your host for Schenectady Today in and around the Capital Region. Thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure to have you watch my show. Thank you.